This is the summary video for Chapter 8, Progress Check 1. This will cover the main concepts that will be assessed on this progress check. The main targets are to identify these key characteristics from standard factored and vertex form of a quadratic equation. That's the x-intercepts, y-intercept, line of symmetry, and vertex. And then once we've identified that information, our goal is to sketch an accurate graph with all that information labeled on the graph. Earlier in the week we did a nearpod activity where we discovered that the factored form is easiest to use to identify x-intercepts, standard form is easiest to use to identify y-intercept, vertex form is the easiest to use to identify both the line of symmetry and the vertex, and that graphs that open down have negatives in front of their rules. So let's take a look at an example. We need to find those four key characteristics, x-intercepts, y-intercept, line of symmetry, and vertex. And then once we have that information, we'll use it to sketch a graph. The x-intercepts can be found using the factored form, setting each factor equal to 0. For each factor, if we solve for x with the first one, we get x equals -7. For the second one, we get x equals +9. When we go to write those as x-intercepts, we need to make sure to write them as ordered pairs, with zeros in the spots for the y values. Next we find the y-intercept, which we use the standard form to find. It's the constant value in the rule, because that's the result that we get if we plug in 0 for x. That also has to be shown as an ordered pair, with a 0 in place of the x. Both the line of symmetry and the vertex come from the vertex form. The line of symmetry is the only piece of information that we don't show as an ordered pair, but instead is an x equals equation. And the number for that comes from the opposite of the number inside the parentheses. In this case, the number inside the parentheses is -1, and so the opposite of that would be +1. That's also the x value for the coordinates of the vertex. So the last piece of information that we need to find is the y value for the coordinate of the vertex, and that comes from the number that is outside the parentheses in vertex form. In this case, it'll be -64. Now that we've identified all that information, we're ready to sketch our graph. It's not necessary to put tick marks on your graph or anything like that, as long as you're making sure to clearly label all pieces of information. So first I'll graph my x-intercepts. Next I'll graph my y-intercept. I draw in my line of symmetry as a dotted line and label it with the equation x equals 1. And then the vertex goes on the line of symmetry, also with its appropriate label. Once I have all that information drawn onto the graph, I can go ahead and sketch my curve, and that's my final result.